Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. For the fourth time in a row, the Monetary Policy Committee keeps policy rates unchanged, also maintains the stance at withdrawal of accommodation. The governor says liquidity distribution is skewed in the banking system, signals tighter liquidity measures by selling bonds in the open market via auctions. Government bond prices tumble, yields spike after RBI announces measures to tighten liquidity, but stock markets perk up after the status quo policy. Rate-sensitive stocks rally. The sensex gains over 350 points, the nifty up 100 points. RBI raises its inflation forecast marginally in the near term, but expects inflation to ease towards 5% by the end of the financial year. Central Bank remains bullish on growth, maintains the 6.5% GDP forecast for the fiscal, despite tightening global financial conditions. RBI raises the red flag on the rise in unsecured personal loans once again. The governor says some loan segments are recording very high growth and are being closely monitored for any stress, stops short of announcing any measures to crimp such lending. The death toll in the Sikkim floods rise to 22, over 100 people, including army personnel, missing. Authorities sound off a second glacier lake outburst in the Mangan district. 2 people die in Bengal's Jalpaiguri after a mortar shell floating on the flood water explodes. JSW Group and MG Motor India inching towards a deal by Diwali. Sources say both companies are likely to have inked a memorandum of understanding. JSW Group is likely to pick up around 35% stake in the Chinese state-owned company. India's drug regulator says 48 medicines have not met quality standards. This includes a hypertension drug by Intas Pharma, a diabetes drug made by Mankind Pharma, select cough syrups among others. Nearly 1,200 drugs were tested for quality. 4% were found to be substandard. The Supreme Court issues a notice to the Bihar government over releasing details of the caste census, but refuses to restrain the government from publishing the data. The caste survey put the combined strength of other backward classes in the state at 63%. At least 7 people are killed, over 40 injured after a 7-story residential building in Mumbai's Goregaon catches fire. The cause of fire yet to be ascertained. 52 people dead, dozens injured in a Russian missile strike in Ukraine. The missile slammed into a grocery store and a cafe where people had gathered to mourn a fallen Ukrainian soldier. The US calls the attack horrifying. Russia denies targeting civilians. Well, the top story this evening, the RBI monetary policy, key policy rates left unchanged. That was the expectation, and this is for the 4th straight time in line with what estimates were suggesting. The Monetary Policy Committee has unanimously decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. 5 of the 6 members voted to maintain the stance at withdrawal of accommodation. However, Governor Shaktikanta Das said that the RBI may have to consider selling bonds in the open market via auctions in order to keep liquidity tight. He reiterated that liquidity remains skewed in the banking system. On inflation, the Reserve Bank has raised its forecast for the July to September quarter to 6.4%, but the forecast for FY24 and the first quarter of FY25 unchanged at just over 5%. On growth, the MPC has kept the projections for FY24 unchanged at 6.5%, despite tightening global financial conditions. The quarter-wise breakup for growth projections also remains unchanged. The RBI also expressed caution over the high growth in some segments of personal loans. Governor Das said RBI is monitoring these loans. However, he did not announce any measures to crimp on such lending.
I would like to emphatically reiterate, let me repeat, I would like to emphatically reiterate that our inflation target is 4% and not 2 to 6%. Our aim is to align inflation to the target on a durable basis while supporting growth. Elevated levels of MSF borrowings amidst substantial funds parked under the standing deposit facility is symptomatic of skewed liquidity distribution in the banking system. Going forward, while remaining nimble, we may have to consider OMO sales, that is open market sales of government securities, to manage liquidity consistent with the stance of monetary policy. Certain components of personal loans are, however, recording very high growth. These are being closely monitored by the Reserve Bank for any signs of incipient stress. Banks and NBFCs would be well advised to strengthen their internal surveillance mechanisms, address the buildup of risks, if any, and institute suitable safeguards in their own interest. The Reserve Bank is closely monitoring the evolving situation and will act proactively to maintain financial stability.
Well, that is the RBI governor. In fact, the governor signaling open market operations to tighten liquidity, and that led to a sharp fall in the bond market. The 10-year bonds got hammered in trade and the yield spiked well beyond 7.3% after signaling open market operations that will drain some liquidity. The rupee, meanwhile, ended flat against the dollar. Lata is standing by now with more on the RBI policy. Lata, along expected lines, status quo as far as rates are concerned, but the big surprise really coming in there as far as the OMOs were concerned.
Oh, absolutely. It is ditto as the market expected, and everybody knew they would do something to liquidity. But no one expected such a drastic measure. People were expecting some very severe talking maybe, and maybe something in the form of a CRR hint at some point in time. But no one expected open market sales of bonds, and that has clearly shell-shocked the market. The previous 8 weeks also, the Reserve Bank has been buying on the screen. I mean, they're not announcing an auction. And about 5,000 crores they must have bought. So I specifically asked him, will it be just the screen-based intervention? Every time they buy, they pull out liquidity, right? Because the bankers are giving them money in exchange of the bonds. So when I asked him if it was screen-based, he specifically said, no, we plan to auction. You know, when you auction, you don't buy 5,000 crores over 8 weeks. One auction is 10,000 crore, 20,000 crore. So the market is really sat down after that. And even today's auction, the 10-year, was bid at 7.35. Look at the banker's psyche. Why will I price the yield lower when I know that the Reserve Bank will come and sell bonds at a later date? So give it to me as cheaply as possible, which means at a higher yield. They move in opposite directions. Now, it's possible that the market will find its feet and it won't be that bad because liquidity will return to the market when the government spends money. And therefore, the Reserve Bank may not announce. Suppose a couple of weeks pass with the Reserve Bank not announcing an OMO, maybe you will start seeing some fall in yields. But at the moment, the market's really shell-shocked. Just to add in terms of other macros, I mean, why didn't the stock market react? In fact, it gave a thumbs up, whereas the bond market gave a thumbs down. The stock markets are happy that growth has been maintained. More importantly, inflation number, everyone feared after those July-August numbers coming in 7.4 and 6.83, the full year number will be revised higher. It wasn't. And even the year after, they have a fairly benign 4.3 by the end of the year. So market's very happy about that. If it's 4.3 by the end of next fiscal, that is, the Jan-March 2025, 4.3, then you must expect a rate cut in mid-2024 as you prepare towards that period. So the market's pretty cheerful that a rate cut will come, and growth is not sacrificed because it's 6.5% both years, this year and next. So it's strong as far as those who are looking for growth are concerned, like the equity guys, but not for the bond guys who have to reply in the next auction. For them, it's not a good policy.
Well, it is the reason why the bond markets were sulking. Thanks very much, Lata, for joining us. But let's talk about the stock markets. Well, the markets waved a thumbs up to the status quo policy. The sensex gained over 350 points. The nifty added on another 100 points today. And the nifty bank closing 150 points high. The nifty mid-cap index also closing about 238 points. Rate-sensitive stocks rallied. Mid-caps marginally outperformed the blue chips. Oil prices hold their ground, but on course to register week-on-week losses. Russia's decision to partially lift its ban on diesel exports added to demand concerns driven by economic headwinds. So crude still a cause of worry, but we have seen prices come off quite sharply. The big corporate story, Sajjan Jindal's JSW Group is in the final stages to ink a deal with the Chinese company MG Motor India. Sources say entities have signed a memorandum of understanding and a deal announcement can be expected by Diwali this November. Parikshit is standing by with the details. Parikshit, it's been in the making for a while now. Are we closer to getting it done?
Yes, we are learning that JSW Group is all set to acquire a 35% stake in MG Motor India. There has been conversation going on at the highest levels between the two countries, and we believe that a deal could now be announced by Diwali, that is within the next 1 month. We are also learning from our sources in the industry that an MOU has already been signed between the two companies. A 35% stake will be bought by JSW over a staggered period. 51% stake in MG Motor will be held by MG Motor India for the moment. But once the IPO of the company goes through, then this will become a majority Indian-owned company. A 10 to 14% stake is likely to be owned by PE investors, the company's dealers as well, and those talks are going on simultaneously. But we believe the deal is done between JSW Group and MG Motor India. Both the companies did not respond to CNBC-TV18's queries. But we are learning that JSW Group is looking to disrupt the market with electric vehicles, with automobiles, and they want to really push ahead with their localization strategy. So let's see what happens in the days to come, but this will be a very important development for the auto sector.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. In fact, in an interview with me from Monte Carlo earlier this year, Sajjan Jindal had revealed his ambitions for the electric mobility space and said that MG Motor was one of their potential candidates on their investment list. Take a look.
On MG Motor, if you are asking me specifically, because I don't shy away from difficult questions, that's also in one of the is one of the lists in our list. Could be one of the options if they want to sell, but I'm not sure as yet.
Okay, a majority stake, is that what you're eyeing as far as MG Motors is concerned? And what else is on that list, sir? You said that that's one of the contenders on the list. What else is on the list?
There are many opportunities, global opportunities, which they all want to, they are knocking at India's doors, and they are looking for good partners in India. So we could partner up with European companies, Japanese companies, Chinese companies. So there are so many opportunities which are existing today.
Well, that was Sajjan Jindal speaking to me in June on the possibility of picking up a stake in MG Motor. We understand that deal is likely to go through by Diwali. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Sources have told us that Max Financial has moved to the insurance regulator, the IRDA, seeking an approval for the Axis Bank Max Life deal. Yasha standing by with the latest. Yasha, what do we know?
Well, that's correct, Shireen. So a step closer to that long-standing Axis Bank Max Life transaction, what we've been given to understand is that Max Financial has moved the insurance regulator, IRDAI, with essentially the proposal and with the intention to seek the regulatory approval as far as this deal is concerned, under which Axis Bank plans to buy nearly 7% stake in Max Life Insurance. All the paperwork, all the formalities have been filed with the insurance regulator, IRDAI, and the insurance regulator is in the process of assessing those documentation as well as consulting the other regulators which also come into the picture, like market regulator SEBI, like Reserve Bank of India, as far as this particular transaction is concerned. As far as the details is concerned, as was announced by the company earlier as well, the transaction is happening at about 113 rupees per share. Axis Bank would be infusing about 1,612 crore rupees in Max Life Insurance through this particular transaction. And as far as the timeline itself is concerned, sources indicate that at about 20 to 25 days is what the regulator could take when it comes to either approving the transaction at the price which has been proposed, that is 113 rupees a share, or raising any observation or objection to any of the clauses as far as the transaction is concerned.
Yash, many thanks for joining us. Now, Japan SoftBank Group has plans to offload an additional 2.5% stake in PB Fintech via block deal. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 the deal size is likely to be 874 crore rupees and the offer price will range between 752 and 767 rupees a share. That's the latest there on PB Fintech. Now, a day after Indigo decided to introduce a fuel surcharge of up to 1,000 rupees to offset higher jet fuel prices, sources tell us that SpiceJet is likely to follow suit. We learn the budget airline will convey the quantum of the surcharge soon. That's not all. We learn air tickets are set to soar this festive season. Danish is standing by now to take us through that. Danish, airfares to fly high this festive season. What are you picking up?
Well, in what could be not so good news for the air passengers just ahead of the hectic festive season, if you take an Indigo flight, then get ready to spend more money as your average domestic ticket cost could potentially increase. Well, if you take a look at the impact on the major busy domestic routes, then there could be a potential increase between rupees 400 to rupees 650 in the overall ticket prices. The aerial distance between Delhi to Mumbai, which is around 1,137 kilometers, on this route there could be a potential increase of rupees 550. Delhi to Bengaluru, where the distance is 1,740 kilometers, this route will see a potential increase in ticket prices by rupees 650. Delhi to Chennai will also see an increase of rupees 650 in the ticket prices. Bengaluru to Mumbai, where the distance is under 1,000 kilometers, there could be a potential increase in ticket prices of rupees 400. And Delhi to Goa, where the distance is around 1,500 kilometers, there could be a potential price increase of rupees 550. Well, Indigo yesterday in a statement informed that the airline will levy a fuel charge ranging between rupees 300 to rupees 1,000 in order to offset the hike in the ATF prices, which in the recent past have shot up, and in the month of October, the ATF prices have been hiked for the fourth time in a row.
Danish, many thanks for joining us. So get ready to shell out more for air tickets. But up next, the death toll in the Sikkim floods rises to 22. Over 100 people, including army personnel, still missing. Authorities sound off a second glacier lake outburst in the Mangan district. That and more when we return. Well, the national story that we continue to track this evening, the death toll in the Sikkim flash floods now rising to 22. More than 100 people continue to be missing. The state government has issued a fresh alert of another possible glacier lake burst in the northern part of Sikkim. The floods have also resulted in the displacement of multiple military equipment, including firearms and explosives, into the Tista River. At least 2 people died in West Bengal's Jalpaiguri district after a mortar shell carried by the floodwater exploded. Home Minister Amit Shah has approved the release of 44.8 crore rupees under the State Disaster Response Fund to Sikkim. Ashika Singh reports from Ground Zero. Let's take a look.
The Sikkim flash floods wreaked havoc and have left behind the pictures of devastations. I'm here at the Bordong area. This is the area where the army camp was washed away when the Tista River overflowed because of the flash flood. You can see the pictures of army still carrying on the rescue operations.
बहुत बड़ा तबाही हुआ, हजारों करोड़ का नुकसान हुआ. अभी हम लोग पूरा तरह से बता नहीं पाएंगे क्योंकि अभी नॉर्थ सिक्किम का जो रास्ता है अभी कट ऑफ है, तो हम वहाँ पर जा नहीं पा रहे हैं, कोई भी संपर्क नहीं हो पा रहा है. इसीलिए हम लोग ये तो आप खुद भी देख रहे हैं कि इतना ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ है, एक बता नहीं पाएंगे नुकसान के. हजारों करोड़ का नुकसान हुआ है.
कारण क्या प्राथमिक तौर पर जाना?
प्राथमिक तो एक तो पहला तो सबसे प्राइमरीली तो क्लाउड ब्रस्ट हो गया, उसके बाद लोनाक लेक में आ गए, उसके बाद लोनाक लेक ब्रस्ट हो गया, उसके बाद फिर और जो डैम था थॉट का डैम वो पूरा वॉश आउट हो गया. वो तो वॉश आउट होने का कारण क्या है, एक तो प्रीवियस गवर्नमेंट ने जो काम किया है वो सब स्टैंडर्ड का काम किया था वो लोग ने, इसीलिए वॉश आउट हुआ. नहीं तो वहाँ से तो पूरा वॉयलेंट होके वहाँ का वाटर क्वांटिटी तो पूरा बढ़ के आया, पूरा फ्लड बढ़ गया. लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी दूसरा जो भी डैम है, NSPC का डैम है, इसने काइनेटिक का डैम है, जितना भी दूसरा डैम कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, लेकिन वही डैम पूरा टूट पड़ा.
That is the Sikkim Chief Minister. Now, the Delhi High Court has issued a notice to the Delhi police over the arrest of NewsClick editor Prabir Purkayastha and executive editor Amit Chakravarti. The court has pulled up the police for not sharing the grounds for the arrest with the accused. Ashmit is standing by now with details. Ashmit, take us through what has transpired in court today, the questions that were asked of the Delhi police.
Well, one aspect that in fact played into the hands of the accused in this case, which is Mr. Purkayastha as well as Mr. Chakrabarti, was the recent Supreme Court ruling in the case of M3M directors, which had very clearly said, which had reflected on the conduct of the ED and had very particularly said that, look, grounds of arrest need to be made clear, need to be communicated to the accused person. This was one of the red flags that was raised by Kapil Sibal as a part of his arguments in defense against this FIR. He further went on to argue that the Supreme Court judgment was very clear. It has not been been complied with and that it's been passed as recently as just 2 days ago. That was the first leg. The second leg of the argument was that they were summoned, they were made to appear before the magistrate's court at 6 a.m. in the morning without an alert, without a counsel, and that this is squarely against High Court rules, which clearly provides that for any such remand order to be passed, the counsel of the accused person has to be there. In case that counsel is not available, a temporary remand order can be passed, allowing for the counsel to appear. None of those procedures were complied with, and that is an aspect that, in fact, even the High Court squared on, clearly pointing out that as far as the remand copy is concerned, the application for remand is concerned, makes no mention of the grounds for arrest. That has not been communicated, that the Supreme Court order is staring the High Court in the face, even as they take on this case for further hearing. And further, they also pointed out, the High Court bench also observed that at this point, it also seems prima facie that even the counsel for the accused parties were not present at the time of this remand order. So importantly, what we have now is a situation where the counsel for Delhi Police will be given a hearing first thing in the morning on Monday, and that's when we'll get more clarity on whether or not the High Court will come down on these two arguments that have been red flagged by Kapil Sibal.
All right. Appreciate you joining us, Ashmit, with the details. And that is it on this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues. We'll be back after this short break.